Stonehill College offers a variety of majors and minors to fit different interests amongst the students. The digital media production minor offers a unique, hands-on learning experience into the world of film.
Hi, I'm Ron Leone. I'm the chair of the communication department and the program director for cinema studies and digital media production. And I also oversee internships in all of our departments. I started here in 2000, and so 23 years and counting, and mostly as a professor teaching different classes, but over time I've served on a lot of committees. I've helped start the LA internship program that started in 2010 and kind of unfortunately ended at COVID time, and not sure if and when it's coming back, but mostly as a professor. That's been my role here, teaching classes, and I've been chair. Now it's my second stint as chair.
My name is Katie Elias Shannon. I've been working at Stonehill since 2013. I graduated here in 2004. I had Professor Leone as one of my professors, and we've kept in contact over the years, and he actually helped me get into graduate school at Emerson College. I started my own production company in around 2011 and started more on doing sports and highlight reels, and that eventually turned into doing more ads and commercials, and I ended up doing a feature documentary here on campus called 113 Days in 2012, which followed the women's lacrosse team through their entire season. Because I played lacrosse here, we won a national championship here, and the coach, currently still the coach, is a former teammate of mine. So I wanted to make a documentary about navigating women's lacrosse, trying to get back to the elite level we were at that time. And then Ron had approached me while I was making the documentary on campus and told me about they were interested in making the DMP minor, and I first just helped them out structuring the minor and getting them in contact with former professors at Emerson to talk about and bounce off ideas as far as classes and stuff. And then eventually through the process he asked me if I wanted to apply for a job, which I had zero teaching experience, but I said sure, and here I am, 9 years later, still teaching.
So the DMP program is, it's structured really in a way that Katie Shannon thought was feasible. We needed to kind of keep it at 6 courses. It seemed a reasonable number, and it's in line with most minor programs here. So it was a reasonable number of courses. And the challenge was students who are doing a lot of other things, a major, maybe they want to spend a semester of junior year abroad or in New York City, was finding a way to make sure that the students, the courses they needed, they were able to get into, because we don't have enough students in the minor to sustain like offering advanced production every semester. The classes would just be too small. So we had to try and figure out a way to balance like offering the courses at least once a year and making sure that students could get through the minor and do what they needed to do and be ready to do a thesis film in their senior year. My main role was that I felt it was necessary to include at least one cinema studies course in the mix, because I think that, and I remember Katie Shannon was a student in my film class before she left and got her master's and came back to teach, and she agreed too that being exposed to different kinds of films, and in the way that I approach it in my intro kind of to film course, can really help shape the way that someone wants to tell their own stories and make their own films. And you remember things, you take pieces from things that you've seen yourself, things that you've seen in classes, things that you've written about, thought about in a way beyond just as a film fan or a film lover, and it can help shape your own vision and how you want to convey things to an audience. And so that's pretty much, there have been some small tweaks over the years, but essentially it's stayed a 6-course major with a couple of 200-level courses and a couple of 300-level courses, and then a thesis. And it's worked out fairly well. I think that, in all honesty, that the work keeps getting better and better with each passing year. And maybe it's a tribute to Katie's, she started and now she has several years experience teaching. So maybe her strategies and her, the way she approaches it is working better with students, because it seems like the outcomes, the films that they make, are more interesting, more professional looking. It's really a highlight of the spring semester when we get a chance to screen them on campus. So
the DMP program minor really encompasses everything from screenwriting to film production and then video marketing. When I went here, we didn't have these programs. The film classes I took here were film theory, and I majored in communications with a concentration in public relations. And I'm just really excited now that this is offered for the students within the communications department. I think the DMP minor gives students who are looking to get into production many different avenues they can go to when they graduate, as far as moving out to LA, and if that's something they want to do, creating their own production companies, or working for other agencies. I think a lot of the students now are getting into marketing agencies, and that's where they're getting their foot in the door. So I think having the minor that encompasses production, writing, and video marketing, I think really sets the students up for when they graduate.
There's been an existing DMP course that is focused on studio instruction and then some field instruction. It's something that journalism minors are required to take, and it's a pretty popular class. It usually fills up every semester, and I want to say that has been on the books and offered since I started here. So, and it probably was there before I started here, because the person who taught it, who just left last year, came here in the mid-90s. So, and I think that was her job, was to teach that class. So it extended almost close to probably 25 years at least, if not more. And but then it was a standalone course, and we saw there was an interest, student interest, in something closer to filmmaking, like writing original narratives and telling stories that way. And we about around 2010, around the same time the LA program started, there was a pretty sizable investment made in the studio and facilities and some equipment, and it seemed like the time was right to, and I want to say that much of the credit goes to Katie Shannon, who is an alum and has her master's and has come back here and taught and really shepherded students through the digital media production minor. And without her, it would definitely not look the way it does as a program. Her influence has been the primary one, shaping that program and the courses and how the sequencing is put together, pretty much since we started it. So she deserves much of the credit.
The digital media production minor requires 6 courses to be taken by the student. The courses include Introduction to Digital Feature Production, Screenwriting, Advanced Feature Production, the Thesis Film, Video Marketing, and 1 Cinema Studies course.
So I teach advanced film production, screenwriting, video marketing, and then I oversee all the thesis films. So advanced production is the second course you take after the intro class, where we get more in depth as far as production-wise, as far as technical aspects of the camera, and then directing, how to use lighting and sound, and eventually the project that they end with is write, direct, and edit their own short film. Screenwriting, we go over everything from TV to web series to feature films, and their final project is to write their own short film script, usually around 10 to 15 pages. I pitched the video marketing class to Ron about 3 years ago because I found, and particularly even for me, I didn't necessarily just go full-time into making films, because that's really hard to do professionally and to make money. And so a lot of people that I even went to film school with, you end up making your own production company, and you do a lot of things as far as ads, commercials, social media, weddings, everything. So I pitched the class because I wanted to be able to give the students, particularly in the DMP department, also in the marketing department, another avenue that maybe they can do when they decide, when they graduate Stonehill. And then the thesis projects I usually oversee for 2 semesters. So the first semester they write their script, and it's a lot of back and forth and rewrites. And the second semester is when they film and edit their thesis film.
My specialty is cinema studies and media kind of focused courses. Once upon a time, we had something called learning communities here, which were team-taught classes among different faculty members. And we had, to my knowledge, the only 3-person learning community. Myself, J.P. Kitson, who teaches an intro feature course, and a professor from the English department named Wendy Peak, who's retired as well. And the 3 of us, the learning community was called Making Movies. And we would combine, an English course, my film course in communication, in the communication department, and then the joint seminar would be essentially what is the Intro to Feature filmmaking course that JP has taught for several years now. And the 3 of us would work together, although we relied on his expertise with the equipment and everything. Wendy Peak and myself and JP would help with story development and provide feedback for drafts and on footage that was shown in class, working towards a final project of a finished film. So that was the extent of it for me in terms of hands-on kind of courses. So now I'm not involved with it anymore.
So the thesis film project, I have broken it down usually in 2 semesters. So the first semester is them deciding what they want to do. Is it going to be a short film? Maybe it is an episode or 2 episodes of a web series. Is it going to be a documentary? So it's up to them. I'm open to anything they want to do as far as if it's going to be narrative or documentary wise. And so the first semester is figuring out 1, what they're going to do, and 2, writing the script. So we usually start with a synopsis, writing a treatment, and then finally getting into the feature film or their script, and then doing a bunch of rewrites. Usually they're, depending on the student, we usually go back and forth and have about 5 or 6 rewrites for the script. If a student's going to be doing a documentary, then it's a little bit different as far as what I need from them in the first semester. They'll usually write their own treatment, figuring out the angle, who they're going to be interviewing, what are the interview questions, and kind of the overall theme of the thesis. And then the second semester is when they do their entire pre-production, production, and post-production. So pre-production usually lasts about 3 weeks to a month, figuring out their actors, their shooting locations, and their dates. And then production usually lasts 4 to 5 weeks, depending on when they can shoot and getting the actors and scheduling and stuff. And then the rest of the time is using to edit the project.
Hi, my name is Katie Evers. I was class of 2023 and majored in health science and minored in psychology and digital media productions. My DMP thesis film was about these 2 best friends, Rosie and Daisy, and how one of them was struggling mentally. Throughout the film, Rosie writes letters on a typewriter for some self-reflection. The purpose of the film was to provide a means for someone who is grieving to move forward after a loss.
I think my favorite part about teaching in this program is just the creative aspect. So much of my classes are very hands-on, which I think is important, and I think having a minor that is creative and showing students that this is an avenue where you can make a living and graduate and do this for the rest of their life, I think that's what I enjoy the most. I enjoy when we're in class, particularly in our advanced production class, where I have them write their own short film and we film it in class, and I really like being on set with them, seeing their creativity, helping them if they have questions. And I just think seeing the growth from usually when I see them in the beginning of the advanced class to their thesis, and seeing the growth that they go through with their films, I think is something that I really enjoy.
The showcases, that's really, it's great to see. I think it's great. We have a nice screening auditorium on campus. So I think students really get no cynicism, no irony, but they truly get a charge out of seeing their work on a big screen like that in a really solid projection facility in that auditorium. One of the really interesting things is that in the past few years, at least one student, sometimes more, I've gotten to meet their parents because they brought their family to the showcase, to the screenings, so they can see the result of their hard work. And I think it's really a point of pride for those students. So that's really a great way to celebrate a lot of hard work. I don't think anyone realizes to make a short film, even 10 minutes, a good one, is 100 hours of work. Easily. It's so much work, but it's rewarding when you see it up there on a big screen.
I've had several students go on into different fields professionally when they graduated.
A student who graduated a couple of years ago, maybe 3, named Connor Susi, we don't have necessarily state-of-the-art kind of equipment here. We don't. We're trying to piece things together the best we can and add to the inventory as much as we can. But he was making professional-looking films as a student here, and he's continued that. I mean, that's what he does in his life out in California. He makes movies. He finds funding. He's doing feature-length work, independently right now. So that was not to anyone's surprise, but of course that business is a tough one. No matter what, you can be super talented, but people need breaks in that kind of industry.
I have one student who lives out in LA, who has his own production company, who actually just finished writing and shooting a feature film, and he came back to Stonehill to film a lot of the scenes there. I have a student who I gave a recommendation for, and he's currently in graduate school for screenwriting out in California.
So right now I am a videographer and editor at a nonprofit organization called Harbor Media, and I just mostly edit, but I also do some shoots with the town. I do town meetings, and sometimes I'm modeling with this school as well.
Katie, who was just interviewed, is a videographer, works in nonprofit, so I think she took a lot of what we did in our video marketing class and applied that to her current job.
Skills I took from the DMP program was definitely the editing part, and to know the aspects of Adobe Premiere, that really helped, and as well as different types of shots that I learned.
And there was a student who, it was more a surprise. I'm not even sure he was a DMP minor, but I mean, he has been paid to write scripts for films, and we had a screening of a film that he wrote on campus, which was great. But I'm not sure. I don't know if he finished the minor, but I do know he has written a script that was produced as a feature film with like a couple of $1 million budget. So those are, it's amazing. It's amazing to break into this industry for anyone. And when you're not, your name isn't the same as a famous director already, or you're not at USC, or NYU, and you're doing what you want to do, which is making movies, it's incredibly impressive.
But I do like how I've kept in touch with a lot of my students, and I'm still writing recommendations for students to get into grad school, or if they need a reference for a job. I think that's what I enjoy the most, when my students are still reaching out to me and telling me where they're at, or if they need help. A lot of them still email me asking about freelancing questions and how I got started and how do they get their own clients. So I think that's what I take away from the most is keeping relationships with students once they leave here. The last thing I'll say is I think it's important to have a minor like this and to keep classes like this that continue to push creativity. And I know that, me and Ron continue to try to make this minor grow and continue to try to figure out ways to make it grow, to get more students involved. But I just always want to reiterate that if this is something you want to do, you can find a path and you can find a way to make a living doing this. And I think that's the most important.
I think that working on film teaches a lot of important lessons that you don't necessarily get out of a standard class. It teaches you about teamwork. You can't do it alone. Nobody makes movies alone, really. So you're required to figure out how to work with different people. Some you may get along with great, some you may not, but you need to collaborate and work together as a team, and that's good because in most endeavors in life we don't do, you're not writing books where you're sitting alone with your thoughts. You might have an editor to run ideas off of, bounce things back and forth, but essentially it's a solitary process relative to filmmaking, which it requires, there's too much for one person to do. So I think that part of it is, learning about yourself in terms of working in teams is an important aspect of it. I mean, there's a combination of, let's say, technical skills that you gain and creative kind of expression that is unique to the filmmaking process. I mean, it's distinct. There's 3 phases of production. You have to, and not everybody is great at everything. Not everybody's great at writing a script, shooting, editing, doing essential parts of the processes of making a movie. And so when your ability to kind of see how multifaceted or multi-talented you are in terms of, because they are very different skill sets with each of those things. So it's great to see, for someone at the end of it to say, wow, I did it. I made a movie. It's a legitimate movie. And I had a team of people working, and they were, without me as the producer and director, nothing was going to get done. I needed to kind of be the leader and work with people. And I mean, that's a great experience if you have the opportunity to do it. And not everybody does. And it's great to have an opportunity to express yourself creatively, because in a lot of classes we don't get to do that. It's just not the nature of them. And that's what this minor offers.
The digital media production minor leads to so many unique experiences and different opportunities post-graduation. There are a variety of courses that give hands-on experience and prepare the student for a career in media.